Hello, welcome back where we are learning about the cave bear. And this is another Ice Age animal that is just fascinating to learn about. So we have our cave bear, and based on his name, I bet you can guess where he likes to spend most of his time. So we did find some DNA of the cave bear, and we kind of compare it to the brown bear to understand more about how the cave bear lived because he's no longer with us. So that's how we study them and try to understand their habits. But they had thick fur, helped keep them warm. And the cave bears lived alongside other Ice Age animals, such as the woolly mammoth or the saber-toothed tiger. Now, they have a scientific name. So if you want to be a scientist, please say Ursus spelaeus. So you can call it the Ursus spelaeus or a cave bear, means the same thing. And they first appeared 3,000 years ago and lived until 24,000 years ago. So, yes or no, did they live at the same time as humans? Well, surprisingly, humans did live at the same time. But they're extinct now, so we don't have to worry about them coming up and trying to attack us. They were one of the largest bears that ever lived. They could even weigh over 2,000 pounds, as much as a small car. And if you saw them standing on their hind legs, which are their back legs, they could be 11 feet tall, taller than a one-story building. And make sure next time you have dinner that you look at your dinner plate. And that's how big one of their paws would be, as big as a dinner plate. And their claws, you can see at the ends of their paws, were long, curved, and extremely powerful. So even though they look terrifying, they weren't really a predator. They ate mostly plants, but they were this big. So you can see the human comparison, and this is him just standing on his four legs. So please say quadrupedal. Yeah, and quad means four, pedal means foot. So they were usually quadrupedal, where they walked on two legs. Bipedal means two legs. And the cave bear had front teeth that did look scary, but they weren't really designed for chasing prey. He, according to scientists, they believe that he loved to eat berries, grasses, roots, nuts, flowers, and leaves. And he probably spent half the year eating. And he had to do that to prepare for the long, cold winter. And during those winter months, he would just sleep. He would just hibernate, and that helped conserve some energy for him. And then he would just wake up in the spring and start eating all over again. But they had some huge teeth in the front. They would go deep inside those caves because it stayed warmer. It protected them from predators, also kept them warm. And unfortunately, the last time they went to hibernate, some of them never woke up. And that's one of the main reasons that there were so many complete skeletons found, because there were times that they found thousands of cave bears within the same cave. And scientists would call these bear graveyards because there were so many of them. And they didn't survive because of the ice age. So here you can see the skeleton. You see the bones are relatively put where they should be. So this would be easy to reconstruct, put back together. But scientists have to be really careful that if they see a bunch of bones that are all jumbled up, they have to make sure that it's to the same animal, the same individual animal, and also that it's the same species, because there could be maybe a turtle mixed in there or some snake bones. So it's definitely a challenge sometimes. You can see the skull right here. They got some sharp teeth. And after the winter, they would eat all spring and summer. During the fall, they would return to the same cave. So they kind of had a habit of returning. Some cave families use those same caves for thousands of years. So the grandparents and the parents and the babies, they would all use the same cave over the years. Probably because cozy sleeping spots by digging into a soft cave floor was already made and comfortable for them. So their thick fur, that was so important for their survival. It kept them from freezing temperatures. They also had a thick layer of fat underneath their skin. And look at this one right there. It's the largest animals that inhabited the mountains during the Ice Age. They are similar to the size of modern day polar bears. And they have powerful noses, great for smelling food. It would help them kind of just sniff and know where to go. They could probably smell berries from pretty far away. And just like modern bears, we kind of think that they would stand on two legs to look around. That way they're having a better vantage point. But we also think that they probably had excellent hearing. Scientists think they communicated by growls, snorts, and grunts. What do you think he sounded like? But look when he stands on those hind legs. And this is the large one, but the cubs were born while their mothers were still hibernating. So sometimes a mom would be asleep and have the babies, but the baby bears, we like to call them cubs, would drink their mother's milk all winter long. Sometimes she would just sleep the whole time. But when she would wake up, she would protect those bears at all costs. She was fierce. She didn't want anybody messing with her babies. And I want you to guess, do you think the males or the females were bigger? Well, this time it's the males. They were much bigger. Males probably fought each other during the mating season, trying to win over a special female. And inside their skulls, they had that tall, round forehead. And it's a little different than our modern bears. So scientists can recognize the cave bear skull almost instantly because it's taller. And that helps us know, is it a prehistoric bear or a recent bear? So where they lived was pretty much throughout Europe. They even lived in the mountain regions. So one thing I find fascinating is some caves still have the scratch marks left behind. So there's something called spelunking where you can go look through caves. Always make sure you're safe if you ever do that. There are some safe cave tours because you don't want the ground falling in on you. But if you ever go, definitely look, see if you can see some cave bear scratches. There were also fossilized footprints. So imagine stepping into a place where a cave bear once walked 30,000 years ago. They shared their world with giant cave lions. So cave bears and cave lions, they also lived alongside packs of ice age wolves. So there were a lot of predators. We even have early humans. Sometimes they would hunt the cave bear. They like the fur to help keep the humans warm. Giant hyenas sometimes scavenged cave bear bones. Early humans also lived during the same time, and archaeologists have found stone tools near cave bear bones. So look at the baby. The baby is super cute. And some of these cave bear bones have marks showing that humans cut them. So that's how we know that they were probably hunted by the humans. We're still studying whether they were hunted or scavenged, but what do you think? Do you think humans would hunt them? Scientists tend to think so. And inside these ancient caves, they have special arrangements of bear skulls. Nobody knows exactly why those skulls were placed there. Was that by humans? Or does some animal drag them in there and use those skulls as a trophy? But scientists are more thinking that the arrangement of all those cave bear skulls might have been from some ceremonies or rituals by humans. And here you see this bear. He is much larger than the brown bears today. And our bears today are pretty darn large. But despite their size, they probably were not fast runners. They're probably pretty slow. They got that big, bulky, heavy body, and their body was built more for strength instead of speed. But those huge bodies were necessary so they could survive through the winter. And I just think it's fascinating. Um, they they really didn't eat much meat. Maybe if they were super hungry, they might scavenge, or they would get like some bugs and insects on their leaves that they like to eat. But this creature used to shelter and hibernate. And here you can see, look, a skull right next to a human skull. I don't know. This is kind of interesting. In the Middle Ages, many people thought that cave bear skulls were actually the remains of dragons because they found the skull and they didn't know what it was. So they kind of imagined what it would look like. But look at it. I told you we would see those long, sharp teeth. So definitely don't want to get bit by him. Now, the bigger animals lose heat more slowly. And ancient DNA helps scientists learn how the bears have changed over the years. And polar bears are more like distant cousins, and the close relative is the brown bear. But I think they're cute, but they're also kind of scary to me. But their diet was pretty specialized, and it became a big problem when the climate changed because they only ate certain vegetation. So as the ice age changed in temperature, many of those plants they depended on started to disappear, and finding food was so much harder. Also, the humans spread across Europe at the same time, kind of destroying their habitat. And a lot of times, bears like to fish. So we're not quite sure if he would do what our brown bears of today would do, kind of go by the water and use those sharp claws to get some fish. So, what's your guess? I don't know. There are some scientists that study poop for a living, and a lot of times we can tell what an animal ate, but we've only found some skeletons. We don't have the necessary stuff. But look, look at what he's doing. So bears like to play just like humans do, but I think what's so cool is that every new cave discovery teaches scientists something new about the ice age. And without these bear fossils, we would know far, far less about life during the ice age. And even though cave bears have disappeared thousands of years ago, they are one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and impressive animals that have ever lived. And they'll just remind us of how important it is to protect the wildlife we have today. So here is your trophy for learning about the cave bear. In the classroom, please tell me 2 things you liked or learned. And as always, if there's a certain creature you would like to learn about, just let me know. I'll make a special class for you. I'll see you in the next video.